Good morning, good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. And welcome to the Resilience series on inspiring conversations. My name is Dolapo Olufumilayo. I know that this year has been a very challenging one, and we've all had to develop resilience one way or the other. Some have lost jobs, lost loved ones, lost relationships, and so much more. However, we are thankful to be alive and grateful for the opportunity that comes with each new day. Yesterday, we had two wonderful guests who were vulnerable enough to share their stories of resilience without holding back. Understand that building resilience is a necessary skill needed to thrive and succeed in life. Like our convener, Pastor Nike says, in God's light, we are light. Therefore, get out of your way, follow the light, and be the light. If you were part of yesterday's session, what were your key takeaways? Kindly connect, engage, and network in the chat box, and also ask your questions. Our first guest today is Seye Oyedeji, and we will be discussing how I bounced back after the loss of my spouse. Olusheyi is a transformational coach, an advanced certified grief recovery specialist, an author, certified John Maxwell member, mentor, a project manager, and the CEO of Franamo Weddings and Events. She helps widows, widowers, and single parents find purpose from their pain so that they can be transformational leaders and leave a lasting legacy and advocate of helping children with loss. Olusheyi founded the Restored by Grace charity, birthed out of her personal experience with loss with the aim of raising awareness for young widows and widowers, as well as single parents by providing support, guidance, counseling, financial guidance, and referrals. Olusheyi started a bi-weekly live show on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube called Finding Purpose in Pain, where she interviews various people that have gone through any kind of pain, loss, and have turned it around and found purpose. She is the author of Unashamed, a young widow's journey from loss to triumph. Thank you so much, Seye, for joining us today.
Thank you, Deloko.
So I'm great. So tell us a bit about yourself. Let our audience know who you are and tell us your story.
I think a bit about you. You said it all. You said it all. Thank you for having me, and thank you also to our convener. So generally, I tell people I'm just that lady, that sister, that colleague, that friend, wife, mother, that life has just happened to. So for me, like you said, I help people turn their pain into their purpose. I help people understand why they have detour in life and use that detour in life to be, the strength, that they tell the whole world that they've been through. So basically, that's just all about me, helping people bring out the best from themselves away from all the labels or anything that's happened to them in life. So that's generally me.
Thank you so much for that. So the death of a loved one, right, is sometimes hard to overcome. I mean, especially a spouse. How did you learn to live with your significant loss in a healthy way? What steps did you take to move past the loss that you weren't consumed by it? And how did you build resilience in this traumatic season of your life?
I think for me, I would say it took me some time, if I want to be real. It took me some time, and that's why I'm also passionate helping people so that they don't take that long a time to actually get away from what has happened to them. So for me, one of the things I did at a point in time, I knew at that point that my life couldn't go on like this. I've always knew that there's more to me than just anything. I've always knew that I had so much within me. And at that point in my life when that happened to me, I knew that I cannot allow this to be the end of me, And so for me, one of the things I did practically was to be intentional, to be able to go back and find myself. Yes, it has happened, but who am I? To understand my why and to be intentional about this has happened. So what next? And pick myself up. Nobody could do it for me. I understood that it was my responsibility. So I started searching for things that would help me find me back. I started finding things that will help me find my voice back. I was intentional to bring out the best, despite what has happened to me. And I think the other second practical things that I did was understanding that God could not have brought me this far to just drop me up halfway, irrespective of what has happened to me. So those are the two main things that I did to be intentional and live with it.
Thank you so much. So you were very intentional about it, even though it took you a longer journey. Now you're equipping people so that they don't spend as much time as you did in that season if they experience that kind of trauma.
Yeah.
Just to give our viewers an overview, take us through the journey of that trauma. What exactly happened? How did it happen? And how did you deal?
Okay, so for me, I was a young lady that just finished school. I was sent to, for those of us that we're not familiar with Nigeria, I was sent to the northern part of Nigeria where we normally do serve your country, so they call it. So there I met this gentleman, that wanted me to be his girlfriend, even though the plan was for me to just go and come back like everybody. My parents didn't want me to go anyway. So, but within the 4 weeks, and when I was posted, I met this young guy. It wasn't everything physically, that I wanted, but it was everything emotionally, everything that I wanted. So anyway, to cut the long story short because of the time, I fell in love with this young man. And I remember taking him home and telling my dad that I want to get married. And I was like, no, that's not the plan. The plan is you go and serve and go and be a clinical psychologist. Not marriage wasn't in the plan. But anyway, I went ahead with this plan and we got married and everything looked fine. But my whole world came crashing down. After 1 year into the marriage, I lost him. And for me, it was funny because it was a day before my birthday. And we were planning for my birthday then on a Saturday, and he got this interview and he said, I have to go. And men being men, I was like, no, we'll get another interview. But he said, just let me quickly go and come back. But Dolapo, he never came back. He was involved in an accident. I was called that he was involved in an accident. He was in the hospital, and I took the next flight to Lagos then. But by the time I got to Lagos, it was too late. So I had to wait. And I remember talking to him, and he said, Seye, where are you? But also at that point, I knew, by the time my dad got to the hospital, I knew at that point, I was told not to go because Lagos Ibadan road then in Nigeria wasn't that safe because I arrived late. And I remember him calling me in the midnight because we prayed all through the night saying, Seye, where are you? Where are you? And the plan was to go first thing on the next morning. But around 4:35 when we were about to leave, my dad got a call and he was acting funny with the call. So eventually at that point, I got to know at that point that his last words was, I cannot wait, I had to go. And eventually we're told that he gave up the ghost, and my dad had to tell me. It broke down, and that became a new story about my life, and that changed everything about me, And despite all the crying and all that, the only thing that could come out of my mouth was, "Can I please have Gary and drink?" Because I was just like, "Okay, it's gone, a new chapter of my life," and that's my story. Just within a year, I lost him. Yeah.
Wow. That must have been very, not that must have been, that was a traumatic experience, especially 1 year into marriage, the day before your birthday.
Yeah, that's it.
So like having to experience every birthday. So basically your birthday is almost like attached to this loss that you experience, right? But
Yeah.
now on the other hand, every birthday is now something to look forward to because that experience has changed you, it has shaped you, it has transformed you, and you've emerged like a butterfly.
Yeah.
Now, unlike physical injuries, there isn't a typical time frame for healing or grief. And usually healing takes place in stages. Looking at your life post-loss, are there moments where you look back at the loss and feel that there was purpose to this pain?
Number one, Dolapo, for me, and maybe because I'm a trained grief recovery specialist, we don't really believe in stages of grief, because how you would deal with grief is different from how I would deal with grief. And putting it in stages boxes someone, within a stage, of grief that you are in. But I would say for me, every journey is unique to each person. And understanding that journey and understanding who you are within that journey helps you heal. But for me, looking back and looking post the death of my first husband, for me, there's a lot. Do you know, sometime, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years, I've forgotten. And I was there morning, I was like, oh, it's a day before. Because then before a few years ago, every day before my birthday was always a very sad day. I mean, always this mood. But I just had this revelation to just, because I never went back to look through his death certificate. I never did. But this particular day, I brought it down. I was reading through the death certificate. And I called a friend. I said, oh, this is what they said, the accident and all that. And it was explaining what, the injury, the extent of injury that happened to him. And it said, if he was alive, he would have been a vegetable because it affected his spinal cord. You will have been moving all around. You wouldn't be able to do, and he was saying all that. And at that point in my life, I just tuned into that point of gratitude that God actually took him to a better place so that then I can fulfill more life. And looking back today, even with the loss, even though I miss him and all that, there's so much gratitude, that I've been through this journey and it's happened for a reason. And I've touched so much life that I'm like, oh God, thank you for this opportunity and the privilege to be able to walk through this journey, despite how hard it may seem to be. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Seye. Viewers, kindly engage, connect, network, and ask your questions using the chat box. We want to hear from you if you have any questions for Seye. So, with what happened, right? Did you feel shame or guilt at losing your spouse at that early stage in your marriage? And how did you overcome that shame, that guilt?
Oh, Dolapo, yes, I did. And I had my guilt and my shame in different level. Remember, I told you I was a young lady. I was young. So after when it happened, I wasn't able to fit in. I didn't fit into being single. Neither did I fit into being married. And then for me, at that time, I didn't have anybody around me that was, now we can see a lot of people that were single parents. So I didn't see any single parents around also. And I couldn't fit in. So I coined a word for myself. I usually call myself a matured single because I couldn't fit in. I wasn't a virgin because I was married for a year. I wasn't, so I couldn't fit in. So I felt that shame. I also had to move back to my parents' house because they won't allow me stay in a foreign land, just alone. So I had to move back. So all that for me was shame. Then when I get to introduce myself with my friends, and I want to introduce myself, I'm not sure how to introduce myself. I'm no longer a Mrs. I'm no longer a Miss. So I felt a lot of all that. And for me, it was a problem of identity. I lost it. An issue of label. People started calling me a widow. And for me, being a widow was for old people. So I didn't fit into. And some other people were calling me single parent. So I had that shame, that guilt, a lot of that. But how did I overcome it? By owning my story. And that's why I had to write down my book called The Unashamed. I had to own my story and say, Seye, this is you. You might not be a single person. You might be a single parent, but definitely you're not a widow because I won't take that title. Who is giving me that label? And that's why I'm having that on my show, because I've worked with a lot of people that know that there's an issue with label. And that's why I'm having that event on the 5th, which is called Be More Than Your Label. I had to take away the label and own my pride. I was married, I was legally married. This happened, it wasn't my fault. So because it's not my fault, I need to pick myself up and just lift up my shoulder and say, yes, that's my story. And this is my badge of victory that I went through it and I'm coming out better. And that's how I did that.
Wow, awesome. And it's funny you talk about identity. In this world of social media, there is identity crisis.
Yeah.
Right? And society has, from time immemorial, has always had a way of placing labels, right, that did not belong on us and imposing them on us. And what you did was you stood up and you said, I am not all these other things. Life happened. I'm not in control of when life happens, but I am in control of my response to life. I am in charge of what I make out of my life. I am in charge of what my future looks like. I am in control of what my present looks like. So basically, you took back that power So instead of allowing those labels to shape you, to define you, no, you took back the power and say, no, 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 no. I am going to tell my story. I get to choose what I am called. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of support system, who did you have, and what were some of the vital things that they did to help you cope with the loss, especially with your in-laws? Like, are you still in contact with them? Like, take us on the journey of how that worked.
Dorako, to be fair, and to just be in that state of gratitude, I've been a lucky person, and that's why I'm so passionate because of what I do now. Because a lot of people, it was as if God stationed different people at different areas of my life to be able to help me. Because of time, I couldn't go too much into my story, because one of the things that happened to me is when I got into, when I went for an interview after I lost my husband, and the story is a lot, get my book so that you can read it. I was told in the interview, the woman looked at me after the last stage of the interview and said, Seye, I'm not sure, but I feel you're pregnant. That's about 4 months after the incident. And I said, who is this woman? I'm not, why would you say I'm pregnant? You know, you're not a doctor. And she said, you know what, don't get angry. Just go and check. That doesn't stop the job, we'll still give you the job, but please go and check. So I found out after almost 4 months that there was a little thing living in me. And that for me changed the, I was just like, oh God, I was trying to hide from a lot of people that it's just 1 year, take off the ring, nobody will know and hide. But here am I with something growing in me. And I said, no way, I'm going to take this off. But you know what, Dr. Mitolapo, when it comes to people helping people, God has been my help. One of the key people that God sent to my life then, my late dad, because like I said, I had to move back home. My late dad took the responsibility of my husband, cared for me. I'm not even sure, maybe because it was my dad, but because we're even close. But he took that responsibility, everything, he took it from me. Another, in fact, there's so many, Dolapo, I can't just because of time. Another person that I met on the trip, and that's why, please, if you're listening to me, please be a helper to somebody. One of my very good friends, she was like, her name is Abby, and she said, Seye, I think you need a weekend away or a week. And she was the only one that followed me to Ghana then, just to rest. And you know what happened in that trip, Dolapo? I'm not into current affairs, but my friend knows every CEO. She knows every whatever. And she said, do you know that person? No. Do you know that person? No. And she would leave me where I was sitting and go and meet that person. Hello, sir. This is my friend. She just lost her husband. Can you give her a job at your place? And on that trip, I met one of the best men God sent to me. His name was Erastus Akingbola. I can always never be over grateful for this man. He looked at me and said, oh, see me in Lagos. And I did. And do you know what? He's the godfather of my child. Wow. He didn't know me. I worked with Intercontinental Bank till I left. And every month he will always support me. He was a widow. When I lost my dad, he was there with me. So for me, that is ministry. That is church. You don't need to know the person. Just be there for people. I remember and I wrote that in my book. I said, are you a Noye? I remember also when I moved back from the north and I was working in the bank, and there was a lady there, her name was Noye. She was also a widow. She held me at my early stage. She said, Seye, don't worry. It always gets better. So in my book, I actually gave a page there and I said, are you a Noye to somebody? Because you just need to be somebody. You have to be a part of the story of somebody. So if you're listening to me, whose story are you part of? That's what makes life. And that's what my life is all about, helping people along their journey of pain. So wow. It's a lot.
Thank you so much for that. Viewers, ladies, gentlemen, who and how are you helping? How are you showing up? As a storyteller, what story are you telling? Are you telling the story of grace? Are you helping people and showing them grace? How are you helping people? That is something we definitely need to think about and incorporate in our lives if we've not been doing that. Now, what feelings did you have about the pregnancy, and how did you embrace or even prepare for this new normal? Because you stated earlier, like the plan was to just take off the ring and maybe move somewhere else and basically pretend as if nothing ever happened, right? However, you have a friend, she took you somewhere else. How did you even process? Did you see this child as a new lease in life? Did you see this child as a blessing, a reminder of the love that you lost? I mean, tell us.
Oh, Dolapo, if you know, when you get to know me, you know I'm a very practical person. So when the lady told me that I was pregnant, you know, it's not like now that you just go to the shop and get strips and just do your test. Then back in Nigeria, you have to go to test and do the blood test and all that. So when she told me, I went to the first center. They did the first test, it was positive. They did the third. Anyway, I went to 4 different clinics to be sure that. And when it was positive, I remember getting home then, and I told my parents when they sit there, I said, you know what? I've just aired and confirmed I'm pregnant, and I'm taking this baby out. I don't care whether you're Christian. I don't care whether whatever. I don't care. And I booked to take this baby out because I felt, why now? Why am I having this baby now? Why? This is not part of the plan. I can go along with my life without this. And I booked. But I remember on that day that I was booked for the evacuation, I got a call. And somebody told me, how about if this is the only child you would have? How about if God has a purpose for this child? Are you going to be part of the removal? Yes, you lost the husband, which is not your fault. But removing this would be your fault, would be your decision. Are you ready to live with that all through your life? And for me, it was difficult. And I'm telling somebody watching me, the impact of how you feel, your mental health to your child is important. And that's why I help people. If you're going through something, and it doesn't have to be bereavement, it could be loss of job, loss of someone, or anything, and you're pregnant, because I'm also passionate about that. There's so much attachment between how you feel and how your child will feel. So be careful and get help. And for me, it was difficult, but eventually I did it. And that child today is a blessing. He's almost 15 and is a blessing to me, you know. So it's difficult, but looking back now, oh God, I would prefer to have had twins.
That's very interesting that you say that. So do you think there's a strong support system for widows, widowers in Nigeria, all over the world? What can be done differently to change the narrative?
For me, Dolapo, I don't think so. Because as at the time that I wrote my book, the statistic was 1 in every 10 women is a widow. That's a large number. And we're not even talking about areas like Afghanistan and where there is war. Number one, I used to tell people, because we even label them as widow is one issue. Our traditional, you know, I was speaking in the, you know, something like this, it's called the empowerment for widows. And it is so saddening that even in 2020, some widows still go through a lot of things. They are not acceptable. They're not accepted. They are not provided for. There's so many, I can't go into them. So for me personally, I think there's more. There is more to be done, you know, for people in that category. And it's not only financial, it's emotional, mental health, career-wise, empowerment, just like what we are doing now, all that, to make them know that whatever it is, you can still pick up your life. Some people run mad after they lost their spouse. Some people lose a lot of things. Everything is stripped off from them. I'm working with a woman now. They took everything. So it's making everybody know, whether you're a man, because it's not only a woman, whether you're a man, you can be empowered and you can be all that you want to be despite your loss. So there's so much to be done.
Thank you. We actually have a question from one of our viewers, and it's, what encouragement can you provide to someone who is dealing with a loss resulting from a personal decision that they made? What encouragement can you provide to someone who's dealing with a loss resulting from a personal decision that they made?
Okay. To that person, you know, and I have to, I wanted to move closer to the camera so that the person will know I'm speaking to you. I like what you said. There is a decision that was made. That was. You only made that decision then based on your understanding at that point. Let it go. Today is a new day. And I'm not sure whether you're a Christian. It's a Father that can forgive and let it go. But God has forgiven you. Have you forgotten? Have you forgiven yourself? Write it out and just lay it. And God, I've done this. He will be ready to help you. And one practical thing also that I tell people, say to yourself, I am forgiven. I forgive myself. It's a mistake. My past goes in the past. and teach people, help people, even with you. Don't hide it. When you hide your story, the enemy festers on it. So tell people, help people, so that they can prevent, you can prevent that mistake going over again. So yes, you've made that mistake, you can't change it. But the responsibility to be a better you is with you now. So take it. Take it. So don't let that hold you down, because the enemy will want to use that as a grip on you. Girl, we ain't allowing that. No, 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 no. And come to my webinar. No label, nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's a mistake. Please get, you know what, Dolapo? Help me tell that person. There is a God that uses an eraser to erase every mistake.
Amen.
He erases it. He cleans it. So it's the past. So it's erased. And forgive yourself and live your life.
Amen. So the person that asked us this question, there is a God that uses an eraser to erase every mistake of our past, even our present mistakes. God uses an eraser to erase it. So thank you so much for that wonderful question. So Seye, how can we book a session? How can our viewers book a session with you? You know, for the attendees who are requesting it, how can they connect with you? How can they book a session? You said you have a webinar coming up in December. How can our viewers get involved, get connected with you?
Okay, you can connect with me on social media. On Instagram, I'm Seye Oshe. It's quite long-winded. It's Seye Oshewa Oyedeji, you know, on Instagram. But you can also send me an email at seye.findingpurpose@gmail.com. Seye.findingpurpose@gmail.com. And if you look at my page, you see my webinar coming up, which is called Be More Than Your Label. And what that's doing for people is to take the label or peel it off or mask. Do you know what, Dolapo? Some people say when people feel when they talk about label is the bad thing. Do you know sometimes when people call you good girl, good girl, good girl, sometimes you don't want to feel like being good. But because you've been called that so many, it traps you into a corner. You know, so just watch out for that and just, you know, just join us, because I'm so passionate. And this year, even though we have 30 more days or thereabout, my mark is 200 women before the end of the year to help. So be part of it, and let's multiply the legacy of other people.
That's right. So there's a question here that says, how do you cope with in-laws?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. You know, for me, and every in-law is particular to each other. Every party, like I said, I had to move back to my parents, and now by the grace of God, I'm remarried, and that's what I'm telling anybody also. Don't lose up hope. Don't lose hope if you have lost somebody. It's a God that restores. Like we have very limited, so I can't tell you. It's a God that restores. So don't give up hope. I had a woman session yesterday, and she's old. She has a toaster, and they're going to get married. So don't give up. But with in-laws for me, at my early stage, I struggled. I was asking a lot of questions. For crying out loud, this is your son, this is your grandson, where are you? You know that. But you know what God told me? In fact, I remember the lap I was driving, and I just stopped and I was screaming and I was crying. I was like, God, why? Why do I have to do all this? Do you know what God told me? Seye, I'm your source. Your in-laws are not your source. I'm the only one that can provide for you. Where you are now, is it because you are good? No. So for me, with in-laws and all that, yes, at the early stage they were trying to accuse, but there was no accusation that they could make anyway. Do you understand? But at a point, I just knew. And in fact, when you become a better version of you, your in-laws will look at you as a matriarch rather than a dependent. They will come to you for advice. They will come to you because they can see something beyond your loss. Irrespective. So, and that's why you need to be a better version of you, because they will see through you that you have more.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. I mean, this session is on fire. This session has been very great. Thank you so much, Seye, for this wonderful session. I have learned so much. To our viewers, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to rate this session and all our other sessions, both yesterday and today. Please don't forget to rate it. Kindly head back to the agenda tab. There are 2 concurrent sessions going on. If you're on the professional track, click on the session, which is the ABCs of accomplishing your life's assignment. If you're on the leadership track, click on the masterclass session, 5 tips to connect with your authentic self and transform your life. Seye, you are indeed a blessing. Thank you so much for helping us. Thank you so much for encouraging us to build resilience by helping people. One of the ways to build resilience is by helping people, being a light, shining our light, So thank you so much for that. And the question I have for you guys is, not even a question, be resilient. Thank you so much. And let's move over to the other session. God bless you.
Thank you.